Welcome to another episode of Cultivate. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching once again for another conversation. I am excited you're here. I am excited about today's conversation. I have a special guest with me today, and I've known her since she was a teenager in youth group, and I was a youth leader, then youth pastor, and I've just been able to see her kind of grow up in a way, and I just love her very much. And we're having a conversation today about how we speak to ourselves, about just loving ourselves a little better. And so I'm excited to have Alex Casañeda, it's her married last name now, with me today. Thank you for saying yes and for just being willing and open to share a little bit of your story.
No, I'm so excited to be here. I'm so honored, and I'm ready to talk about how life has gone, how it changed, how things have gotten better, and seeing how good God is when I look back at things that I have gone through in my life.
Yeah, I'm excited. And I really do love you. And you've always been such a mature young woman, young girl, even back in youth days.
The old days.
And I just love seeing everything that God has done in your life, through your life. And I love it. But a month ago, we actually had youth camp at church, and you're one of our youth leaders. The girls love you. Everyone loves you. And we had a girl session. I was leading the girl session, and I wanted to do something a little bit different than what I usually do, which is a teaching. And I had a few girls, you included, you were one of them, come up and share a little bit, read a letter to themselves. And the whole concept of this letter was to speak to your younger self,
right?
To a younger version of yourself from the place you're in right now. And I asked you to share that day, and you talked a lot about the struggle you had with how you viewed yourself and your perspective of yourself and how you didn't love yourself. And so I want you to tell me a little bit about what that looked like, and even like, when did you remember it began? Like, when was the point where you realized, like, okay, this is how I feel about myself?
Right. So I did speak about it at camp, and I know I talked a lot about how I had struggled with just self-hatred and comparing myself to other girls, and how it leaked into areas of my life. But when I looked back at it and started thinking about, how it happened, I realized that it started really, really early, all the way in middle school. And it started with the simple change in life that comes. School wasn't as easy, and it wasn't as natural as it was in elementary. And, you always think when you're little, those problems are insignificant. And then when you get older, they just kind of go away. But my problem started, and I let it go untreated. And in middle school, I started comparing myself to all these other girls. I saw, okay, she's getting attention from, these guys, or this girl's getting an opportunity because she's more fit or confident or pretty or all these things. And it just seemed like every opportunity that came other people's way never came my way, and that it was something wrong with me. And I started literally talking like other people, trying to be like other people. And I noticed that if I was around someone for a certain amount of time, I would literally adopt not only their mannerisms, but their speech, their sayings, things like that. But it wasn't because, I looked up to them. It's because I wanted to be them. Yeah. And it got to the point where, I got to high school, and the problem stayed with me. And I started imitating girls' handwriting to the point that my teachers thought I was literally turning in other people's work. And I literally just kept speaking negative things over myself. Doesn't matter what I got, it was never good enough. And that leaked into church. That leaked into literally just everything, school, my friendships. But
I remember you saying on that letter that you basically wanted to be anyone but yourself. Mm-hmm. So it didn't matter what or who. It's not like you had this idea of who you necessarily wanted to be. You just didn't want to be who you were.
100%.
And you didn't want to, you rather adapt to whoever else was around you. And I think one of the things that sometimes people think about, or people in church, or maybe even people new to church, you think that because you go to church or you have a relationship with Jesus, that you're not going to go through things like these. Mm-hmm. You grew up in church. You were raised in church. Christian home, Christian family, at church every Sunday. Yet still you found yourself in this situation. And we think about, like, you hear Jesus loves you. He loves who you are. He is for you. How is it, or what is it that you think that didn't resonate with you?
I think I made myself the exception. I would hear Jesus not only died for you, but he made you, and he made you to be this amazing being, this creation that he formed, every single person. And every time the pastors would say the prayer, I would literally tell myself, yes, everyone except you. And it wasn't like anyone was telling me, oh yeah, this doesn't apply to you. You're a little different. But I made myself different. And I was like, no, because if he really wanted me to be this amazing, that I wouldn't look like this. I wouldn't be this ugly. I wouldn't be this gross. I wouldn't be this nasty to be around. And I adopted that so heavily that I was like, no, this is how terrible I am. And I turned into someone with deaf ears. Like, it didn't matter what was spoken, didn't matter what Bible verse, what prayer, what worship song. I made myself the exception, no matter what.
I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but I love that you're saying that, because I think there's a lot of people at church that hear the words, but they can't receive them for themselves. And sometimes you don't even realize you're doing that. Meaning you're so used to hearing but rejecting what's being said, or you can hear it, you can agree, like, yeah, that's great, but it's not for me. And go through life not even thinking it that way, in the sense of, like, not acknowledging that that's what you're doing. And then you turn the blame on God. Meaning, I hear this about myself or about my life, yet I don't believe it, but then I put that on God. Well, God, you don't do this for me. And how come my life is still like this? And there's a disconnect between what God can actually do versus what I'm not allowing him to do. And sometimes we blame God for things we're not allowing him to do. And so if anyone's watching right now, that's why I always say it's good to self-analyze and be honest with yourself. Going to church every Sunday it's not the miracle. It's not what's going to do it. It's you really applying what's being said.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry for this pause. I just didn't want to forget this.
No.
Okay, so you're a teenager, you're in high school,
right.
You're speaking all these ugly things about yourself. I know you mentioned how it basically prevented you or kept you from forming meaningful friendships and relationships. How so?
Well, girls were not friends. They were competition. Even if they were friends, they were competition because I just needed
You made them competition.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I completely did that in my own head. And everybody became someone that I either was worse than, and then I just didn't even bother, or someone I had to be better than. And I could only feel good in a room if I looked, talked, smelled, acted better than another girl. And everybody else who I perceived to be better than me, I would want to imitate, or I would just get more mad at God that I wasn't like them. And I would blame the fact that they were loved and that they were given opportunities on, or almost give them the credit, like, oh, it's because it's who you are. But I couldn't have that, because look at me, look at what I am. And it's hard to have friendships when you don't celebrate other people's victories and when you don't want good for them. And then you're not really a friend. You're just kind of like a leech. And I started taking what I wanted from certain people and trying to be like them. And before I knew it, I literally wanted to be everyone but me. And I wouldn't even listen to other people's problems, because all I could think about was they probably wish they were talking to someone else. They probably wish that it was somebody else that was hanging out with them. And yeah, I heard about when they hung out, but I wasn't invited to that. So for sure, I did something wrong. And I would literally create this narrative in my head of, oh yeah, well, I know why they didn't invite me. It's because my jokes aren't as funny as hers. Or I know why they don't talk to me. It's because I'm like this. And I know why boys don't like me. And I know why teachers don't, believe in me, or coaches, whatever. It leaked into everything.
It's wild how we can create a whole movie in our heads and make that movie a reality. Meanwhile, nobody is thinking what you're thinking. And in your mind, and it's wild because I think I've been on the other side of that when it's like nobody thinks that about you. Nobody's but to feel like you can make that in your mind such a reality that you begin to live in this self created
Yes.
world, and it'll affect and people could be ready to love you, but you're not ready to let them.
Yeah, 100%. My mind became like a trampoline park. I would just jump to conclusions that weren't really there.
That's wild.
And I would create just things that weren't true, but I believed them to be true. Not just because I said them, but I feel like when you're looking for something, and then you're going to eventually find what you're looking for, because you're just going to, and if you're looking for something bad, you're going to find it.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for something good, you're going to find it. And I was looking for reasons that people wouldn't like me. And I was looking for reasons that I was this horrible thing I made myself to be. And so I found them, and I found them over and over and over in every area of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this topic because I feel like so many of us can easily live in that place. Maybe not in the sense that maybe I don't speak bad about myself, but I live in a world where I'm constantly looking for that thing I don't have. I feel like there's people who live, and again, a little bit different, but chaotic lives and
Right.
drama. It's almost like, have you seen those people that drama like
gosh.
follows them
It's like a
everywhere?
magnet.
And it doesn't matter. And it's easy to think, oh my God, but drama. And it's almost like you just invited, because without even knowing it, you're so used to this that you will find it. Even if there's no drama, you'll somehow create it.
It's like your habitat.
Yes. And you, again, could be a Christian. You could be a good person. Yet our minds, if we don't take care of our minds and our hearts, because it also starts in our heart, can destroy our lives, can literally destroy relationships and our future if you're constantly looking for that negative thing, that negative voice. And so you used to play soccer and you were great. But I played soccer and I was not good at all. But, I say it anyways because I kind of did, but wasn't great. But it was fun. And you mentioned how it even affected that.
Yes.
Just your mind and where it went.
Oh, yeah. So I actually wanted to go play college soccer, and I had scouts looking at me, and oh my gosh, to this day, it's not something that hurts that I regret, but it's definitely something I look back on and I'm like, man, I robbed myself.
Wow.
I had opportunities. I had people who believed in me. I had favor, like beyond, because I never worked outside of practices like other girls, but the Lord had favor and I had talent, and I threw it away because no matter how good I was, when you're literally even on the field, like you don't believe you're good, you're not going to kick the same. You're not going to play the same. You're not going to believe the same. You're not going to run the same. And it sounds so foolish. It's like, okay, how can you blame comparison on not taking an opportunity in life? But it was so true. I barely played my senior year because I wanted to be every other girl so bad. I wanted to be like them. I wanted to talk like them. And when I would mess up, instead of accepting, criticism from a team or letting them be the people who pick me back up, I just was like, no, my God, you're so horrible. What is wrong with you? How could you mess up like this? And then I would get mad that I overreacted, and it became this constant overthinking. Like it was like there wasn't even a soccer field in front of me because I was just overthinking at everything I was doing wrong in the moment. And I walked away from something I could have had because it didn't matter how hard I worked. I knew I was never going to be the other girl. Always, always, always.
How exhausting was to live like that?
Oh my gosh. Well,
did you feel the weight of it? Like, did you at some point feel like?
I think I did. I think at the time it felt almost like a weird comfort, like that saying, like misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like I was my own company and I loved it. And it was this weird, like masochistic tendency to talk bad on myself. But it became very heavy because it's like, okay, what you believe and what I believed started leaking into my conversations, and not just my thoughts, but like what's in your heart, like that, that verse that talks about whatever's in our heart, like will eventually come out.
Overflow, yeah.
And I was overflowing everything I believed. Everything I believed about myself would be literally put onto other girls and other people. And how tiring it was for me, other people started getting a taste because my conversations were tiring. our conversations were heavy. Because when it's all I could think about, it's the way that I lived.
Yeah.
And it's the way I conducted myself in every arena.
And so it began to push people away.
Oh, yeah.
And being in the place you were in, it's easy to then find yourself saying things like, you see, that's why, I'm terrible. You see, everybody walks out. You see, nobody likes me. You see, not realizing that it's our own doing. That it's not that people don't want to be there for us. And it's not that people don't enjoy our company or our friendship. Is that we bring this like lid onto things that it comes to a point where people are just like, they don't know what to do. So is that when you started to realize the weight of what was happening in your life? Or what was the moment where you began to acknowledge those things?
I think the moment that I acknowledged not only just what I was saying to myself, but that it was wrong and that there was something wrong with the way I was living. It was already past college. It was when I was 22, and I got to a point where it was church. I was comparing myself, everything in ministry. I was comparing myself at work, in my friendship circles. It felt just horrible every time I would go out. Like I didn't want to be anywhere because no matter what, I wasn't invited to this thing. I wasn't good enough for this thing. And I started noticing that it was all that I could talk about. Because I think every person I spoke to, I was hoping that they would either tell me enough good things that I would believe them. But I never listened to them. Of course, I only listened to the bad things I would tell myself. So someone could have riddled off amazing things about me for a whole day and I would not have believed any of them. Just like off of my armor I had created, no sinking in. And I realized that I carried it into every conversation and people were getting tired of talking to me. Like I would watch their faces change when I started talking about it. And I was like, oh, okay. And I realized that people were done trying to encourage me because you can only encourage someone for so long when they don't want to be encouraged and they don't want to listen. And I became that person. And I was like, oh my gosh. People aren't enjoying conversations with me anymore. People only used to laugh when I talked. What's happening? I legitimately felt like in the spiritual side of things, I felt my light start to dim because I wasn't walking in opportunity. I wasn't walking in purpose because I was constantly berating myself for everything I wasn't and for being horrible, disgusting. I would call myself a piece of garbage. Every single day I would look in the mirror and call myself a piece of garbage. And I would I'd literally point at myself in the mirror, like some dramatic movie. I'd be like, you're disgusting. You're a piece of garbage. And I want you to know that. And I want you to know that forget friends. There's never going to be anyone that's going to love you. Like, do you see how ugly you are?
What would move you to do that? Because one thing is I think we've all maybe have felt like horrible about ourselves. But to take that step to actually like look at you and tell you like how horrible you are. Like, what was it that prompted you to do that? Or you don't even know?
I think at that point, I believed it so much and I needed myself to be punished for being the way I was. And it was like, that was my way of punishing myself. And it was this super strange thing that I started to almost feel like sadistically comforted by, where it's like, oh yeah, you're disgusting. It's like, yeah, tell yourself, how horrible are you? Like, that's right. Like you deserve it. And I really felt like I deserved to be told that. Other people would tell me good things. I'd be like, okay, yeah, like stop. Like, not like false humility. I'd like genuinely get uncomfortable because I'm like, why are you lying to me? We'll get upset at people for thinking good things about me.
Yeah. Again, so at first you would say what God would say about you, and even being at church. Okay, I hear this, but it's for everyone but for me. That was at the beginning, but now it's years have gone by. You are no longer a teenager, but yet you're still at church. You are still involved. What has changed in your relationship with God? Like, how did you not grow since then? Because I feel like if that's how you feel about yourself, did you ever grow resentful towards God? And did that relationship with God change from God is good, he loves me, to I don't like you, I hate you, you made me this way, and I hate myself?
Actually, it turned into this very weird, I felt like he was mad at me for being this way. Oddly enough,
it makes sense.
I turned it into, okay, he's upset at me. He's always upset at me because I'm never doing anything right.
So you almost felt that the way that you weren't good enough. It wasn't necessarily God's fault. It was you. You
Yeah.
made yourself unlovable and you made yourself unwanted. And so he must be disappointed that you did that to yourself.
100%. 100%. And I was like, man, he's so disappointed in me. Everything I do is not good enough for him. And I wasn't even recognizing what I was doing.
Right.
I just was constantly like, oh my God, God is mad at me. God is mad at me. But I wouldn't talk to him about it. I would just pray my daily prayers, talk to Jesus, bless my day, whatever. I was bringing everything to him except for that. And I can feel it now how it was. I literally felt like I was watering everything in the garden, supposedly, but I was letting this one weed come out and overtake everything. And I wasn't taking care of it. And I would be praying all these things, but I was not for 1 second acknowledging before him that I was having this issue. I didn't want to surrender it to him because it didn't feel like a problem. It just felt like this is the truth. I've got to learn to live with it. And man, I'm sorry, God, that I'm never going to be good. I'm sorry that I literally am a horrible person. And that's how I started feeling with God. Yeah.
And I'm asking a lot of questions about how you felt, because I think that as you speak and as you say and mention those feelings, I know that there are people that might not necessarily connect with everything you're saying, but with those little things, and realize as they hear it, like, oh wait, that's how I feel.
Right.
I think, and I know that there's a lot of people that are currently attending church, currently love Jesus, because you can love Jesus and still feel this way about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that there are women out there that, yes, you love Jesus, but you have that kind of relationship. You pray, but there's this barrier between you and the truth of God over your life. And so you believe, but only a little bit. And so you think everyone's going to get their miracle, but not for you. And you think that life is always going to be this way. And there has to be that moment where maybe this is the moment where you find, you're listening, you find yourself in this situation. Amen. That you're like, oh wait, I do that. Oh wait, that's me. And this is your, do something. Is this for you? If any of this has resonated with you. So how or when is it that things began to change for you? That reality of, I'm doing this to myself, and it might not be true, began to sink in a little bit.
I had to literally ask for it. I decided at one point, okay, I don't want to live like this. I see other people in my life that carry this for years, and it affects their relationship with their kids, with their family members. And I decided, okay, I don't want to live like that. And there must be something wrong, because there's so many girls that talk about loving themselves and how confident they walk. And why don't I live like that? Why don't I do that? And I started noticing literally outward things like, oh, okay, this person is so fun to be around. Like, am I like that? Oh, this person is this. And I was like, maybe there's something I'm not doing right, because I just keep getting the same result, and people keep not understanding why I'm not growing and why I'm not loving myself. And so at one point, I literally decided, I was like, all right, God, I don't even care to love myself. I don't even want to, but we're going to have a heart to heart, and I'm just going to ask you to give me the desire to love myself, because I don't want to. Give me the desire to even try for myself, because I'm seeing what it does to relationships. I'm watching people stop wanting to be with me, Lord. Like, I'm watching people make that face when I come around, because my conversations are not light, as you say they should be. They are heavy. They are discouraging. And I'm watching myself not just not get opportunities, but mess up the ones that I already have, because I cannot get over how much I hate who I am. And I was like, Lord, I don't even want this change, but I want to want it. So please help me. And I started praying, and I just really thought, I don't want to give my daughter this. I don't even have kids or anything, but I told myself, I never want my kid to feel this way about themselves, because I see that when you have confidence, when you love who you are, you actually embrace the gifts that God has given you. You acknowledge them, you accept them, you let them be used. And you're amazing to be around. You're fun to be around. And you believe the things people say about you. You're able to encourage others when you actually believe it about yourself.
It's freeing.
And I wanted that for my future. And I couldn't see past where I was, but I knew what I wanted for what was coming. And so I started making changes little by little. And some were practical, some were spiritual, but I knew that I had to tackle both because the way I was living wasn't okay. I had to stop talking to myself the way that I did, which was really hard because it sounds like, oh man, like why would you want to talk to yourself like that? No. Why do people go back to addictions? But it feels good. Yeah. It literally felt good to talk about myself in such a horrible way. And I had to cut it. And I had to speak to the people closest to me and literally have them as accountability partners to not speak poorly about myself. And I would get annoyed when they'd be like, hey, stop there. And I'm like, whatever, like, this is the truth. Like, leave me alone. But I had to actually listen. Like, I couldn't just have open ears. I had to have an open heart and I had to accept it. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm not going to talk about myself like this. I couldn't say anything good over myself yet. Like, it was literally in steps. It was a process. It was stages. And I couldn't say anything good about myself, but I knew I had to stop the bad. So
first you ask God to help you want the change.
Right.
And then the next step was to stop speaking to yourself that way or catch yourself. And I'm sure that it didn't happen overnight. And I'm sure that there were times where you might have still said certain things to yourself, but it was continuing. How did you not give up in the process?
Wow. Honestly, I literally just had to keep going. And I told myself, you have to keep going. You have to keep going.
You wanted it enough.
Because maybe. I wanted it enough. I wanted to not be like this forever when I saw the results in my life more than I wanted to keep feeling that way. But I feel like it had to hit that balance because I lived for so long wanting to feel that way more than wanting anything else because I didn't see a problem. And then I had to strike that balance where it's like, nope, I want this one more. And I had to stop certain habits and then build new ones because there was holes when I would stop those habits. And then eventually I'd have to like refill those with things.
So now you're not speaking to yourself that way, but what other practical things did you do and spiritual things?
I cut off Instagram, which I know for some people, they can have it. Even people who I'm sure struggle with comparison. I mean, props to them if they can have Instagram. I know I can't. And to this day, I saw, okay, this is a branch in my life that doesn't produce. Like, bad fruit comes from it every time I go on it. It doesn't matter what it is. I cannot have it. And so I took it out. And it's hard because people know about each other's lives through Instagram and everything is posted through there. But I was like, no, I need to hear the word, like literally God's words over myself, my words and my friends' words without all this white noise in the background. So I had to cut off Instagram. I had to ask God literally for the desire to work on this and to want to love myself and make changes. I wouldn't say that I had negative voices in my life, but if there are, those would have had to go because you can't tell yourself something when other people are telling you other things. It's hard. But I didn't have those negative voices. What I did have to do also, I literally got to know myself. And I was like, okay, I've spent so long wanting to be other girls. I don't even know who I am or what I have. And I specifically remember opening my laptop up one night and making a list, things Alex likes. And I started putting like vacation spot, food, animal, places, whatever. And I started writing all these things. And then I started writing down things I'm good at. Things that people had told me that I never believed, but I wanted to get them out. And I was like, these are things I'm good at. These are things I know I like doing. And I had to literally get to know who I was in order to see what I had been given. I'm trying to think what else I did. It was a lot of changes. But not all of them happened in one day. They definitely had to come with time. And there were spirals and there were setbacks and there were times where it was like, I was upset. Then I was upset with God. Then I was like, why aren't you healing me? I finally want the change. What's happening? I was like, I'm reading my Bible. I'm praying. I'm worshiping. I want to change. What aren't you doing? What am I not doing? Like, what's going on? And then I started to get upset that I wanted to be changed and I wasn't.
It wasn't happening at the speed you wanted it to.
Oh, yeah. And my timing. And I was so upset about it. 100%. And that was a humbling process, a super humbling process, because I feel like now when I think about it, I'm like, man, how prideful was I that it's like, God, but now I want it. Aren't you going to do it? It's
Yeah.
like, no. How faithful are you? Are you going to keep coming back even when I don't? Are you going to keep serving even when I don't? Are you going to keep believing for it even when I don't? And I was like, okay. So I just had to keep going. When I didn't feel it, when I didn't want it, I literally had to keep going. And everybody says that about how they get through a struggle. But I feel like no one ever gets prepared for living out the words, even when I don't want to. Because it's easy to say, because you're like, yeah, but that desire is going to be deep there. But it's not. Even when your deepest desire is, I don't want to, you have to keep doing it. Otherwise, you stay in the same hole.
Did it come to a point that after you continuing to show up, that you felt like finally you were gaining power over it, and that now the voices and that desire and that became a little bit more faint and started to kind of fade away?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I started to notice, okay, people are getting invited places. Okay, I'm a little sore, but it's not an open wound. Okay, now I'm at a point where I feel okay with it. I'm like, man, whatever. I'm not meant to be there. Like,
it's not, everything became, sometimes we make things personal that are not personal.
Right.
Like
And I was
sometimes
like-
you don't get invited somewhere, not because it's personal. It might have absolutely nothing to do with you. But if, like you said, if you're looking for it, you're going to find it. You
Yeah.
will definitely find whatever it is that you're looking for.
And I made it that. And but I started realizing, I was like, okay, this has nothing to do with me. What if someone felt this way if I wanted to hang out with a group
Yeah.
of people?
Right.
But what was your question again? That part? I totally forgot.
Starting to feel like finally you were overcoming this, and it wasn't that constant, but now it's behind a little bit more. Like now I'm moving in freedom, and maybe did you come to a place where now that's no longer a thing? I mean, I feel like things like that are always, I call them like light switches. I feel like we all have a light switch of things we used to be, things we did. And it's not necessarily on the forefront of my life, but it is a light switch that I can do this to if I wanted to. So it is within reach. So is that something that you would say, okay, this is behind me, it's a light switch? Or is it something that you feel like you constantly have to address, or a little bit of both?
I think at first it was a light switch, honestly. And I've gotten to a point where, because I've built such new habits, I truly don't struggle with it anymore, because literally God is so good. But in the beginning, it definitely was a light switch. One wrong moment and the next few days were screwed up for me. And it was like, okay, we're back. And I would feel, man, I'm back to square one. I think the days that I like picked myself up and was like, okay, it's been 2 days of telling myself the same things I used to, time to start again, like time to restart. That is when I started feeling, well, there's a difference now. And then when I would feel things creeping back in, I literally had to ask God, Lord, give me eyes, ears, and a mind to be aware of when that starts to leak in. Like triggers that I don't even know are triggers. Like show them to me. And I literally I started to feel that difference. Little by little, it definitely, it wasn't, that change wasn't a light switch, unfortunately. That one was like a take your time. But I did start to feel like, okay, wow, I'm not feeling the hurt as much. I've been saying so many good things about myself that now when people say them, I believe them. Now, when I'm in a conversation, I'm listening to the person. I'm not thinking about how much I hate me. I am actually here and thinking about, oh man, what is God asking from me today? What is he putting in front of me? Like my eyes are open.
Yeah.
And I started feeling that freedom, because I noticed that I was embracing everything around me instead of focusing on everything within me. And it was like this unintentional selfishness that I started to shed and realize. I was like, oh man, this feels great. I want more of this. And I kept going. And then after a little while, I would say probably 2022 or 3, that's when I really felt the change. That's when I really felt like, man, it's not even something that if I have Instagram for a month feels like it'll come back. What I do though is that I still act like it could, and I keep myself protected and I keep myself safe and I don't indulge in speaking poorly about myself. I don't do those things because I never want to overestimate my humanity.
Yeah.
Or underestimate. I never want to do that. But the real freedom, it came over time, and it was slow, and then it built up for sure.
And I hear you speak, and I I think you have more maturity than a lot of 40 and 50-year-old people I know. Like, you're here and I'm like, that's a quote. That could be a quote. Alex is out here dropping bars on everybody. But you are, because it really takes someone, it takes a lot to realize and acknowledge and make the changes and not give up in the middle of trying to change. And even those decisions, something as simple as Instagram, how many grown women and men it might not even be about how you feel about yourself, but a million other things would never make that decision of saying, I don't need this. We're so used to all these different things. And so, good on you for doing that. It's like, hey, I could probably do this, but I rather not, just because I enjoy what I've been able to build,
right?
So far, that it's not even something, I don't need it. For anyone that is watching and feels like they are trapped in that mindset, they can't see out of it, they can't see past it, they want it, but they don't even know how to take that first step, or they've started to, but they're still like gripped by the thoughts, by the feelings. What would you say would be the first step, or what are some practical things, because you did talk about practical things you started doing, that they can begin to do today?
Honestly, I hope someone's listening to this that needs that, because I would say today, literally identify the things in your life that are feeding that, whether it's you, outside sources, whatever it is, identify what they are and cut them off. And if you can't cut them off, like whether it's people in your life that you live with, things that you cannot get rid of, ask the Lord to literally shield you from those things. Lord, I can't get rid of the voices, but I pray that you would get rid of the impact. Like, I pray that you would protect me from that. And just literally cutting off things that are contributing to that self-hate, that comparison. If you don't even want it, but you want it, like you want to feel that freedom you hear people talk about, you don't believe it for yourself. All of our strength literally has to come from God, asking him, please, Lord, like, give me that desire when I don't have it anymore. When I run out, may you start filling in, may you start pouring in, and literally starting to actually get to know who you are, start declaring things over yourself that you do not believe. I feel like the reason that the Lord says there's so much power in the spoken word is because every battle that you keep in your head only has one person fighting it, and it's you. And you always lose that one. It doesn't matter what. There's a reason we have to confess our sins, our everything, because when you get it out, the problem starts to get smaller and smaller as more words cover it. And you're like, oh, okay. Start talking to people, get accountability, people in your life that do see you for how you one day want to see yourself. I had no shame. I started asking women that I looked up to. I was like, how do you get like that? Tell me, how do you love yourself? How do you pour into yourself? Because I didn't know. And the things that I don't know, the tools I don't have, I have to go find, and I have to go get them. And I had to want it that bad. And I literally had to ask God for it every step of the way. I had to pray for it every single day. Like, you have to show up even when it feels like there's nothing to show up for. And I just told myself one day. And what's crazy is I didn't even recognize the miracle and how big it was until way after that day. It's like God followed me through and he did so much. And I forgot to turn around and say, wow, look where you took me out of. Like that verse of you took me out of the mud and the mire. And that was how I felt. Like I was stuck, and I had to ask Jesus for it to literally take me out of that. So literally cutting out things in your life that are contributing to it, and starting to build new things for that. And to keep going. Like there are not enough words in the world to just say, keep going when you don't want it, when you don't believe it. You just keep it going.
Yeah. I love that you said how many times we don't have the tools ourselves, and we don't know what to do next, and we don't know but wanting something enough to go get it, to go find it. I think that's key in all of it. Sometimes we want the change, but we don't even know where to start. For some people, this is the beginning. It's listening to this and acknowledging, I have a problem. There is an answer.
Yeah.
But there are people out there that have already recognized the problem. They might be stuck in getting that answer.
Yeah.
And they might have taken 10 steps, but that next step seems so far away. I don't know how to take it. Ask for help.
100%.
Ask for help from people close to you, from whoever you, like what you said, you went to people that you admire, that you said, okay, I want this. Ask for help and get the tools, but it has to be something that you want and you want bad.
Yeah. 110%. Absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else that you would say to someone, that an encouragement that might, again, be struggling or might be on that journey and might feel at times like they're not going to make it through and this is pulling them back? Any advice for them? Any word of encouragement for that person?
Man, things that people would tell me all the time, but I 100% see it now. I literally, my gosh, to sum up is hard, but it's like, just like believe for it, ask for it, try. Even if you don't know where to start. I wanted to take 1,000 steps in the right direction, stumble 1,000 times, then rot in the one I was in. And I like literally take a step. You don't believe it, you don't feel it, you don't want it, try. Because I had to think about where I wanted to be, and that had to start with where I was. And honestly, I never ever believed that I would get out of it. Never ever. Even when I was fighting for it, I didn't actually think I was going to defeat it. I just thought it was going to become something that became easier to live with. Never in a million years did I think I would walk in victory from it. Believe for that. Like 100% believe for those things that you don't believe for. Want them, ask for them. Because honestly, it was worth it. And I would say that I was worth it. Even when I didn't feel like it, I was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love seeing this side of you. You are a joy to be around. To me, you have always been, even in the moments that you struggled with some of those things. I'm getting emotional.
So much.
I'm getting emotional because I know some of your journey. And I know some of the things that have been thrown your way. And I am just so extremely proud of who you are. I am so proud of this young girl that I knew that has so much strength and so much wisdom beyond her years, and who's wanted and who's known where she's headed. And even with some setbacks, you fought for it and you're doing it. And God is going to continue to do incredible things in your life. Oh, Lord.
Thank you.
And I'm so proud of you. And I love you. And I know, again, God is just getting started with you. And you have so much to give. So wise, so strong, so beautiful. And I just love that I get to see a glimpse of that and see you just continue to not only have gotten to this point, but see the rest of the things that God has for you. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being honest and open. I know sometimes it's not easy to just say all those details about your life, but I know that people's lives are going to change. I know that people are going to listen to this and they're going to acknowledge and they're going to take a step because of this. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Today.
I love you.
I love you. I'm sorry all these tears at the end, but you never know. And it's me. I'm going to cry. So forgive me. I really hope that today's conversation encouraged you, whether you find yourself in a situation like what Alex described, or maybe it's a different situation, but that today, through her words and through this conversation, you found some faith, you were encouraged, and that you begin to remind yourself that you are worth fighting for, that you don't have to live your life how you've lived it up until this point, that God has more for you, that even learned behavior in situations that have happened to you can change. You can change. So today, take that step, ask for help, be honest with yourself, be honest with God, and trust me that healing and freedom are possible. And if there's anything we can do for you, come alongside you in the journey, we would love to do that. And we love you. We will see you next time. Have an awesome day.